Hey everyone, this is Lisa from TRW. In this video, I'm going to be using one of our TRW Elegant fonts and the Silhouette Studio Conical Warp to put a monogram on a tumbler nice and straight. So one of the issues with applying to tumblers is that because of the curve of the tumbler and how it tapers, your design can kind of curve a weird way. So I will be using the Conical Warp feature to offset that to get a nice straight decal. So I have Silhouette Studio open. I am working in Business Edition. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type out the monogram with our TRW font. So let's go through here. I'll do L, P, N. So I did an uppercase P for the middle, and then P is my last name, so I put it right in the middle. You can do whatever you like for the monogram, but for what I do, I enjoy it that way. So I'm going to go over, I just used the font a little bit ago, so I have it under my recently used and frequently used. This is TRW Elegant Font 6. So this font is very elegant. I do enjoy it a lot. Every now and then when you have monogram fonts, especially ones that flourishes, you'll notice that you may need to adjust the spacing every now and then. So I'm going to go to my top corner, choose a fill color so you can see this a little bit better. So when I put this on my tumbler, excuse me, there's a little bit of an issue. My L looks pretty good, but my M is far away. So I don't want to decrease the character spacing that you see right here because I don't want to move my L. So what I need to do is I need to break apart my letters and adjust them on their own. So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to right click on my word or my monogram and I'm going to convert to path. So what this does is it takes my letters and changes it from actual letters to shapes in Silhouette Studio. It's similar to welding, however, I still have these overlapping lines. These are still separate. So let's go right here, and now that's converted to path, this is almost like when you have a word, your letters grouped together to make a word. This is a group of objects now. So all I have to do is I'm going to right click again and ungroup. So now you can see I have little boxes around each letter. That means they are individual objects. So I'm going to click on my M, and I'm just going to use my arrow key, and I'm going to move it over to the side until it's closer in there to a spot that I like. So I don't want it too far in with it. I don't want it to overlap too much with this P, so I'm going to keep it about right here. And I have that all set. So now I'm all set to weld. I do have overlapping lines. If I zoom in right here, you'll see that I have lines here. That means if I went to cut them, it would cut those lines. So I want this to be welded together, one smooth object. So let's grab this whole thing. Let's go to weld. So now all of this is together. It moves together. If I double click on it, you'll see that there are points around the whole thing, meaning it's one object. So I'm going to apply this to a tumbler. I want my design to be fairly large. This right now is about 7 inches wide, which is a little bit too big for my tumbler. So I'm going to go over here to my resize or my scale panel. I'm going to make sure to turn on the lock. That will keep it proportionate. And I'm going to change my width closer to 5 inches. So it's right here. Let's change that. I'm going to type in 5 inches. Hit enter, and so now I have this set up like that. So here's the problem. My monogram is fairly wide and I have a tumbler that tapers. So one of the issues with tumblers and tapering is that it'll cause your text to curve because it can't account for that curve in the tumbler. But the great thing is now we have the Conical Warp. This is available in, I believe, Designer Edition and up. I'm going to go to the bottom of my panel. You'll see you have this little warp panel, and there are two types of warp that we can do. You have a typical warp where you adjust it by points, but then if I hit this tab right here, this is our Conical Warp. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over and we're going to put in the dimensions of our tumbler. So let's go right here. I'm going to select my monogram and we're going to go over and do Conical Warp selected shapes. So you can see right away my design did kind of curve just a little bit to offset it. These are the standard dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab the dimensions for my tumbler, and then I'm going to enter this in, and then we'll be ready to warp. So you can see we have our dimensions that we do for our tumbler. I have mine right here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take the top part, and first I'm going to take out the straw. It makes it a little bit tricky to measure. So here's the top part. So my tumbler is about 3.5 inches wide. So we're going to go right here, 3.502. That's great. I'm going to leave it. And so the bottom one, let's measure it at the bottom. So I have this over here. So this is close to, I would say, a little more than 2.5. 2.865, that's pretty good too. So a lot of the times this is going to be a standard tumbler and I'll default to that. And then let's go ahead and let's measure from the top to the bottom. So this is about 6 inches tall. So we're going to go over here and adjust this to 6 inches. Let's go right here, 6. And so now we're all set. So check this out. Now we have a couple things to adjust now. The spot that we see our monogram is kind of where we would assume it's going to be on our tumbler, and I don't want my monogram to be that low on it. I think it looks ridiculous. So we're going to go right here and we can see our ABC. This, we can adjust it, our size. We can adjust how big it is. So I'm going to keep it around 5, but then we can also adjust where it sits on our tumbler. So the higher it is, the less of a curve it needs. The lower it is, the more. So you can kind of see it adjust from there. So I want it to sit right on the middle of my tumbler. So I'm going to set it like that. And I feel pretty good about that. So I'm going to leave it like this. And so we're going to go ahead, hit apply. And so now we have our warp all set and our design is ready to cut. So we're going to go over, let's go to our send panel. And then we're just going to go ahead, send this to our cutter, and then we'll be ready to weed and apply. Here's my design. Now I just need to weed it out or take out the excess vinyl. So let's go right here. I'm just going to use my weed edge tool from our website, therhinestoneworld.com. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull around my design. So you can see I'm not really having any issue. This is an intricate design, so I just have to be careful which direction I pull. But you can see that the vinyl itself came up with no problems. And that's a good reason why you should do test cuts, just to make sure you have no issues weeding. If you have problems weeding, you know, then you can spend more time actually weeding your design. So that will waste time with that. So I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't do a test cut because I don't have time for that. But then you'll spend 10, 15 more minutes weeding. Well, a test cut really only takes 1 or 2 minutes. So just one thing to keep in mind, you want to do your test cuts. So I'm just going to take out this excess here. This one I can just set to the side, it's too big. And I'm just putting this in my little nail polish holder. So my design is all weeded out. We have my monogram. So it does have a slight curve to it. You won't see it too much, honestly, with the conical warp, unless you're doing a long straight line of text. You know, the adjustment is pretty subtle, but it's enough to make sure that your text is straight across your tumbler. So let's go through here. I just cut off that excess. And I'm just going to cut this top off. So I am using our FDC decal vinyl. This is our breakfast blue color. It is available on our website at therhinestoneworld.com. It's really cute. It's a good wedding color, you know. Brides tend to love it. So I'm going to take my transfer tape. I'm bringing it the non-sticky side down to kind of figure out how big I need to cut it. And so now I'm just going to kind of turn this around and cut off a section for my decal. So this is a 12-inch roll of application tape. It's fairly large. So I'm not going to cut across the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of cut a little square off and then kind of roll this back on itself. Now we're just going to go over here. Let's go ahead and drop our tape down onto our decal. This is how we are going to get this onto our tumbler. And I'm just using my scraper to smooth that over. So now I have my decal all ready. We have it there. And I am going to use a crafter's cradle to apply my tumbler. I don't want my tumbler to move around, so I do like using this. This is from JCC Blanks. It's just something to keep my tumbler still. Some people like to use, you know, some sort of shoe holder. Whatever keeps your tumbler still will work great. I like this one because it has a little felt edge to it. So now I have my decal peeled up. So don't forget, I applied this. I set it to be in the middle of the tumbler. So I'm just going to kind of use almost like a horseshoe look. I'm going to go over, I'm going to horseshoe it, and I'm going to find the middle of the tumbler, kind of drop that down, and then I can use the sides, smooth it over. We'll bring that like this. So I'm just going to use my scraper, scrape on here to get this onto my tumbler. And then I can just peel up my application tape. Now, I wanted a really big monogram because I love big, obnoxious monograms. You can make it smaller, that's no problem. But I did like it this way. I wanted to take up a lot of space. And also, the more vinyl touching the tumbler, the better likelihood of it staying. So I have that set like this. So we have this font on our website. This is TRW Elegant 6. And we use the Conical warp of Silhouette Studio to get this to apply to our tumbler correctly. So if you have any questions, you can email us at info@therhinestoneworld.com, or you can comment below this video.